I'm Allison Carter, 27 years old, and my entire life shattered during a Sunday dinner with my parents. There I was, cutting into my mother's famous pot roast in their Connecticut suburban home when my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number flashed across my screen. Get up and leave. Don't say anything to your parents. My fork clattered against the plate. Mom looked up concerned. Dad's eyes narrowed. My heart hammered in my chest as I stared at those words. How could I possibly know that in the next few minutes, everything I believed about my life would unravel completely? Before I continue this story, if you're watching from your own dinner table, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because trust me, nothing was ever the same after that message. Sunday dinners had been a sacred tradition in the Carter household for as long as I could remember. My mother, Brenda, spent the entire day preparing elaborate meals that would make Food Network chefs envious. My father, Frank, always contributed by selecting premium wines that complemented whatever culinary masterpiece Mom created. Tonight was no different, at least it wasn't supposed to be. I had moved back to my hometown of Westport 6 months ago after what my parents delicately referred to as my career adjustment period in New York. The publishing company I worked for had downsized, and my apartment's rent had upsized. The combination left me little choice but to retreat to my childhood bedroom, a situation that was meant to be temporary but was increasingly feeling permanent. More potatoes, sweetheart? Mom offered, already scooping a second helping onto my plate before I could respond. I'm good, actually, I said, pushing the plate back slightly. Dad cleared his throat. You know, Allison, Patricia Mitchell's daughter just made partner at her law firm. She's only 29. I stabbed at a carrot. That's great for her, Dad. It is great, he agreed, swirling his wine. Shows what hard work and persistence can accomplish. These subtle jabs had become more frequent since my return. My parents never directly criticized my life choices, but they had perfected the art of casually mentioning the successes of my peers while giving me sympathetic looks. Did I tell you that Jason called the house last week? Mom mentioned, too casually. Jason was my ex-boyfriend, a relationship that had ended badly 8 months ago. He asked how you were doing. That's nice, I replied neutrally, though internally I was seething. Why was my mother still talking to my ex? He's been promoted at the bank, she continued. Said he's traveling to London next month for business. Wonderful for him, I muttered, taking a large sip of wine. The dynamic was always the same. Their seemingly perfect marriage and life choices contrasted with my apparent failures. Dad, a successful corporate attorney, and Mom, the consummate homemaker who ran the local historical society, versus me, the unemployed writer who couldn't maintain a relationship longer than 2 years. What made tonight different, though, was the strange tension I'd noticed between them earlier. I had overheard them arguing in the kitchen that morning. Something about timing and being careful. When I entered, they'd immediately stopped talking and plastered on those plastic smiles parents think their children can't see through. Mom had outdone herself with dinner preparation today, pot roast, homemade rolls, 3 side dishes, and her special occasion apple pie for dessert. It was the kind of meal she usually reserved for holidays or when they were entertaining important guests, not an ordinary Sunday. I was thinking, Dad said, refilling his wine glass, that maybe it's time you considered going back to school. Get your MBA. My firm has connections at several good programs. I don't think business school is really my path, Dad, I replied, the same response I'd given the last 5 times he'd suggested it. Well, your path has led you back to your childhood bedroom at 27, he said with a forced chuckle that was meant to soften the blow but only sharpened it. Mom jumped in with forced cheerfulness. I ran into Judy Miller at the grocery store. Her daughter Katie just got engaged. Beautiful ring, apparently. The unspoken message was clear. Everyone else your age is moving forward while you're moving backward. As they continued their subtle assault on my life choices, I noticed other oddities. Dad checked his watch 3 times in 20 minutes. Mom kept glancing at the front window whenever a car drove by. They both seemed nervous? On edge? It was subtle, but after 27 years, I could read their tells. Earlier in the day, I'd noticed Dad taking a phone call in the garage, unusual for him, as he typically had no problem talking business in front of us. When I'd walked in to ask if he needed help carrying in groceries, he'd quickly ended the call with a curt, "We'll finish this later." Mom had been oddly insistent about tonight's dinner, too. When I'd mentioned possibly meeting friends for drinks, her reaction had been disproportionately disappointed, almost panicked. "But I've already started cooking, and your father specifically requested that we all eat together tonight." There was also the locked basement room, Dad's office, that had mysteriously become off-limits in the last few years. I'd never questioned it much. Everyone deserves private space. But combined with the other peculiarities, it suddenly seemed significant. I was mentally cataloging these inconsistencies when my phone vibrated against the table. I expected it to be my friend Haley, who'd been texting about meeting up later. Instead, I saw the unknown number and that message that would change everything: "Get up and leave. Don't say anything to your parents." My hands trembled as I stared at the text message. Every instinct told me this was serious, but it also seemed absurd. Leave my parents' house because of an anonymous text? It had to be a prank, or someone had the wrong number. "Everything okay, honey?" Mom asked, her voice carrying a strange note of tension. "Oh, yeah. Just work stuff," I lied, slipping the phone into my pocket. Work stuff, from the job I didn't have. Neither parent questioned this obvious hole in my story. "I need to use the bathroom," I mumbled, pushing my chair back. Once locked in the upstairs bathroom, I pulled out my phone to examine the message again. As I stared at it, another text came through from the same number. "They aren't who you think they are. There's a car waiting at the end of the street. You have 5 minutes." My heart pounded so hard I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. I moved to the bathroom window and peered through the blinds. Sure enough, a black sedan with tinted windows idled at the corner of our quiet suburban street, its engine running. This was insane. I was about to ignore the whole thing when fragments of memories began flooding my mind, inconsistencies I'd noticed over the years, but had dismissed. Dad's business trips that never seemed to align with his court schedule. The way my parents stiffened whenever police cars drove by. The locked room in the basement that appeared when I was 16, which I was never allowed to enter. The fact that we had moved 3 times during my childhood for increasingly vague reasons. How I'd never met my grandparents because they were supposedly estranged, yet there were no photos of them anywhere. That time I found Mom burning documents in the backyard when I came home unexpectedly from school. The way they discouraged me from submitting my DNA to one of those ancestry websites when I'd expressed interest. Each incident alone seemed minor, explainable. Together, they formed a disturbing pattern. I had to make a decision. Trust this mysterious texter and leave, or dismiss it and continue dinner as if nothing had happened. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized the pale, frightened face staring back at me. What if, and this seemed crazy even to think, what if my parents actually weren't who they claimed to be? 5 minutes. The car would only wait 5 minutes. I flushed the toilet for show and ran water in the sink before heading back downstairs, my mind racing with possible excuses. "Sorry about that," I said, forcing a smile as I returned to the dining room. "Actually, I just got a message from Haley. There's some kind of emergency with her roommate. I should probably head over there." Mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "Now? But we haven't had dessert. I made your favorite apple pie." "I know, I'm sorry. Rain check?" "It sounds pretty urgent." I grabbed my purse from the back of my chair. "What kind of emergency?" Dad asked, his tone suspiciously sharp. Something about a burst pipe in their apartment. Haley's freaking out." Mom stood suddenly. "At least let me pack you some dinner to take with you." "No need, really, I insist," she said, already moving to block my path to the door, her body positioned in a way that seemed casual, but effectively prevented me from leaving. Dad checked his watch again. "Why don't I drive you? It's getting dark." Their behavior was setting off alarm bells. The way they were trying to delay me, the strange look they exchanged when they thought I wasn't watching. "Actually, I forgot something in my room." "Be right back," I said, heading for the stairs before either could object. Instead of going to my bedroom, I slipped into my parents' room and looked out their window, which overlooked the backyard. The wooden fence had a gate that led to the alley behind our house, a potential escape route. I could hear Mom and Dad speaking in hushed, urgent tones downstairs, though I couldn't make out the words. This was madness. I was acting like I was in some kind of spy movie, planning an escape from my own parents. Yet, something deep in my gut told me the danger was real. I crept down the back staircase that led to the kitchen. Mom and Dad were still in the dining room, their voices tense. I quietly unlocked the side door that led to the backyard, wincing at the slight squeak of the hinges. Once outside, I didn't hesitate. I ran across the lawn, unlatched the gate, and slipped into the alley. Looking back at the house, I saw Dad's silhouette appear at the upstairs window, phone pressed to his ear. Fear propelled me forward. I sprinted down the alley and around the block, staying close to the shadows of trees and fences. When I reached the corner where the black sedan waited, I hesitated for just a moment. Getting into a stranger's car went against everything I'd ever been taught about personal safety. But then I heard my father's voice calling my name from the direction of our house, and I made my choice. I yanked open the car's back door and jumped inside. "Drive," I gasped to the woman behind the wheel, my heart threatening to burst from my chest as the car pulled away from the curb. "Seat belt," the woman said calmly as she accelerated, her eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. She appeared to be in her early 40s, with short auburn hair and the focused demeanor of someone who had handled numerous crises. My trembling hands fumbled with the seatbelt as I twisted to look out the back window. There was no sign of pursuit yet, but my panic hadn't subsided. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice higher than normal. "What's going on?" "My name is Dana Winters. I'm with the U.S. Marshal Service, Witness Security Division." She flashed a badge that looked official, though I had no way of verifying its authenticity. "And you're not Allison Carter." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What are you talking about?" "Of course I'm Allison Carter." Dana took a sharp turn onto the highway on-ramp. "Your real name is Allison Reynolds. The people you know as Frank and Brenda Carter are not your biological parents. They were assigned to protect you as part of a witness protection program that began 20 years ago." I laughed, a high, slightly hysterical sound. "This is insane. You've got the wrong person." "My parents are not who they claim to be," Dana interrupted. "And right now, they're extremely dangerous to you." This doesn't make any sense. My head was spinning. If they were protecting me, why would they suddenly be dangerous? "Because they've been compromised," Dana said grimly. "Your real parents testified against the Blackwood Organization, one of the most dangerous crime syndicates on the East Coast. The testimony put away Gregory Blackwood for life, but his network has continued operating. Recently, they've gotten close to identifying witnesses from that case." I shook my head in disbelief. If what you're saying is true, and I'm not saying it is, why would these people, suddenly turn against me? "We've been monitoring them for the past month after intercepting communications between your father, Frank Carter, and known associates of the Blackwood Organization." Dana reached into the console and handed me a manila envelope. "Open it." Inside were surveillance photos. I recognized my father meeting with men I'd never seen before in parking garages and diners. There were also transcripts of phone conversations. "Taking care of loose ends will solve both our problems," read one line attributed to my father. "The package needs to be delivered intact," read a response from someone identified only as operative. "The package," Dana said quietly. "That's you, Allison." This could mean anything, I protested, but my conviction was wavering. "You're telling me my parents were planning to, what? Hand me over to criminals? That's absurd." "Your adoptive parents were originally trusted agents with the Marshal Service," Dana explained. "They were assigned to your case because of their exemplary record. But something changed. We believe they were compromised approximately 7 years ago. Financial records show unexplained deposits. Their behavior patterns altered. They maintained their cover, but they've been feeding information to the Blackwood Organization. Why not just arrest them then?" "Why the cloak and dagger routine with the text messages?" "Because we needed to get you out first. Once you were safe, a team was going to move in." but something accelerated their timeline. This morning, we intercepted communications suggesting they were planning to deliver you tonight. The reality of what she was saying began to sink in. If this woman was telling the truth and the evidence was becoming harder to ignore, then my entire life had been a carefully constructed lie. I don't understand, I whispered, tears forming. If they were going to hurt me, why wait all these years? I've been living with them my whole life. Not because of you, Dana said softly. Because of what you have. What I have. I don't have anything of value. The pendant your mother gave you for your 16th birthday. The one you always wear. May I see it? My hand instinctively went to the silver oval locket that hung around my neck. Mom, or whoever she was, had given it to me, telling me it had belonged to my grandmother. I'd worn it nearly every day since, considering it my lucky charm. With shaking fingers, I unclasped it and handed it to Dana, who examined it carefully before pressing what appeared to be a seamless part of the design. To my shock, the locket opened in an unusual way, revealing not the expected photo space, but a tiny microchip. This contains encrypted evidence that could dismantle what remains of the Blackwood organization, Dana explained. Your biological parents ensured it would be protected with you, hidden in plain sight. The Blackwoods have been searching for this evidence for 2 decades. And the Carters, they knew about this? They didn't initially. But we believe they discovered it several years ago and have been biding their time, waiting for the right offer from the Blackwoods. Dana carefully closed the locket and handed it back to me. We need to get this to a secure location, and you're the key to accessing the encryption. I clasped the necklace back around my neck, my mind reeling with questions. My real parents, are they alive? Dana's expression softened slightly. Yes, they're in a separate protection program. Their location is classified, even for me. The revelation that my biological parents might be alive somewhere hit me with unexpected force. All these years, I'd believed Frank and Brenda Carter were my only family. Where are we going? I asked, noticing we were heading north on the highway. Safe house in Vermont. We'll meet Agent Thompson there. He's the one who sent you the text messages. We have 48 hours to get you secured before the Blackwood organization realizes you're gone and starts hunting in earnest. I turned to look out the window, watching as the familiar Connecticut landscape disappeared behind us, along with everything I thought I knew about my life. After 4 hours of driving through increasingly remote areas, we finally turned onto a gravel road that wound through dense forest. The safe house was actually a rustic cabin, set back from the road and barely visible until we were upon it. Under different circumstances, I might have found it charming. Agent Michael Thompson greeted us at the door. He was tall with salt and pepper hair and the same hyper-alert demeanor as Dana. He'd been the one who sent the text messages that had saved me or abducted me, depending on whose version of reality was correct. I still wasn't entirely convinced. You made good time, he said to Dana before turning to me. Ms. Reynolds, I'm glad you trusted your instincts. I didn't have much choice, I replied, stepping into the cabin. It was sparse but comfortable, with basic furniture and heavy curtains covering all the windows. And I'm still not sure I should trust either of you. That's fair, Thompson acknowledged, gesturing for me to sit at a small dining table. I imagine you have questions. About 1 million, I said, dropping into a chair. The adrenaline that had carried me through the evening was fading, leaving me shaky and exhausted. Thompson placed a folder on the table. This contains your original birth certificate, photos of your biological parents, and documentation of the witness protection program you've been part of since you were 7 years old. I opened the folder with trembling hands. The birth certificate listed my name as Allison Marie Reynolds, born to Thomas and Catherine Reynolds in Boston, Massachusetts, not Hartford, Connecticut, as I'd always believed. The attached photo showed a couple holding a young child who was unmistakably me, with the same distinctive hazel eyes and dimple in my right cheek. I don't remember them, I whispered, tracing their faces with my fingertip. You were young when you entered the program, Dana said gently. It's common for children to adapt to their new identities so completely that they lose conscious memory of their previous lives. What did they do? My real parents? Your father was an accountant for the Blackwood organization, Thompson explained. When he discovered they were using their legitimate businesses to launder money from drug trafficking and other criminal enterprises, he collected evidence and went to the FBI. Your mother supported his decision. Their testimony was crucial in the case against Gregory Blackwood. And the Carters? Were they ever really married, or was that part of their cover? They were married before they joined the Marshal's service, Dana confirmed. They were childless and had excellent records as agents, which made them ideal candidates to raise you. For many years, they did their job well. What changed? I asked, the betrayal still fresh and stinging. Thompson and Dana exchanged looks. 7 years ago, Frank Carter made some poor investment decisions that left them in significant debt, Thompson said. We believe the Blackwood organization discovered this vulnerability and approached them with an offer. So they sold me out for money, I said flatly. It likely started small, Dana suggested. Information about your whereabouts, your activities. Over time, their involvement deepened. I thought about all the times my parents had insisted on knowing where I was going, who I was with. The tracking app they'd convinced me to install on my phone for safety. Their disappointment when I moved to New York, and their barely concealed relief when I returned. The relocations during my childhood, I realized aloud. Those weren't random moves for Dad's job, were they? Security precautions, Thompson confirmed. Whenever we detected potential threats, we moved your family. And those relatives we occasionally visited? Other agents checking in, verifying your safety and the Carters' adherence to protocols. I stood up suddenly, needing to move as revelations continued to crash over me. This is too much. My entire life has been a lie. The people who raised me were planning to hand me over to criminals. I don't even know who I am anymore. You're the same person you've always been, Dana said firmly. Your experiences, your choices, your personality, those are real, Allison. Am I? Because it seems like Allison Carter doesn't exist, and I'm not sure who Allison Reynolds is supposed to be. I spent that night in a small bedroom at the back of the cabin, staring at the ceiling as my mind replayed memories, recontextualizing them with this new information. The strange arguments I'd overheard between my parents that suddenly stopped when I entered the room. The way they discouraged certain friendships. Their insistence that I attend college close to home. My entire identity had been constructed as a shield, and now that shield had been ripped away, leaving me exposed and vulnerable. By morning, exhaustion had finally pulled me into a fitful sleep, only to be awakened by Thompson knocking on my door. You should see this, he said grimly, leading me to a laptop set up in the main room. On the screen was surveillance footage of my apartment. 2 men in dark clothing were methodically searching through my belongings, pulling out drawers and emptying my closet. This was taken last night, Thompson explained. They were looking for the pendant, and for any clues to where you might have gone. The reality of the danger finally sank in. This wasn't an elaborate hoax or a case of mistaken identity. Someone was indeed hunting me. What happens now? I asked, my voice small. We extract the data from your pendant, use it to take down what remains of the Blackwood organization, and keep you safe until the threat is eliminated, Dana said, making it sound simple and straightforward. But as I would soon learn, nothing about this situation was going to be simple at all. 3 days at the safe house crawled by with excruciating slowness. I alternated between numbing shock, rage, and paralyzing fear. Dana and Thompson maintained constant vigilance, taking shifts to monitor the perimeter while a tech specialist named Marcus worked on extracting the data from my pendant. The encryption is sophisticated, Marcus explained, hunched over specialized equipment he'd brought in. Your biological father was no amateur. He built this to withstand serious attempts at cracking it. On the second day, Thompson turned on the local news. My school photo from senior year of high school filled the screen, alongside a headline, "Local woman missing, parents concerned." The camera cut to Frank and Brenda Carter standing on our front porch, looking appropriately distressed. My mother dabbed at tears with a tissue while my father spoke to reporters. Our daughter left during dinner 3 nights ago, saying she was going to help a friend, he said, his voice breaking convincingly. She never arrived at her friend's house, and no one has heard from her since. We're desperate for any information. Allison, if you're watching this, please come home. Whatever's going on, we can work through it together. I felt physically ill watching their performance. They're trying to smoke me out, I realized. Standard tactic, Thompson confirmed, turning down the volume. Make a public appeal that puts pressure on you emotionally while also getting your face on every news outlet in the region. They reported me missing to the actual police, I pointed out. Won't that complicate things for whatever agency you're with? U.S. Marshals Service, Dana reminded me. And yes, it complicates things, but we anticipated this move. Local authorities have been informed that there's a federal investigation involving you, though they don't know the details. Later that day, Thompson began training me in basic self-defense and emergency protocols. If we get separated, head north until you reach the main road, then east toward the gas station we passed on the way in, he instructed as we walked the perimeter of the property. Memorize this phone number. It's a secure line that will connect you to our operations center. As we practiced escape routes and basic defensive moves, I grew increasingly frustrated with the limited information I was receiving. I want to know everything, I demanded that evening. Not just bits and pieces. What exactly is on that chip? Why has a crime syndicate spent 20 years looking for it? And why am I the key to accessing it? Thompson and Dana exchanged one of their meaningful looks before Thompson nodded. She deserves to know. Dana sat across from me at the table. The data on the microchip contains financial records, communications, and most importantly, a list of every high-level member of the Blackwood organization, including politicians, judges, and law enforcement officials who are on their payroll. My father collected all this when he worked for them? Yes, but it wasn't just financial records. He also recorded conversations, evidence of direct criminal activity by people who've never been linked to the organization publicly. With this evidence, the Justice Department could dismantle their entire operation and prosecute dozens of corrupted officials. And I'm the key because the encryption requires biometric confirmation from a Reynolds family member, Marcus explained, joining our conversation. Your father designed it so that only he, your mother, or you could access the data. It needs your fingerprint, plus a verbal passphrase. I don't know any passphrase, I protested. You do, even if you don't realize it, Dana said. It would be something meaningful to your family, something you would remember even after your conscious memories of your early life faded. I thought about it, focusing on the few fragments of memory I had from before age 7. Nothing significant came to mind. We'll figure it out, Thompson assured me. The important thing is that you're safe, and a shrill alarm cut him off mid-sentence. Thompson immediately went for his weapon while Dana moved to the security monitors. Perimeter breach, north side, she reported tensely. 2, possibly 3 individuals. How did they find us? I asked, panic rising in my throat. Questions later, Thompson said curtly. Emergency evacuation, now. Marcus, secure the equipment. Dana, take Allison through the south exit. I'll cover. Everything happened with dizzying speed after that. Marcus shoved equipment into a bag while Dana grabbed a go-pack and hustled me toward a door I hadn't noticed before, concealed behind a bookshelf. It led to a narrow passage and another door that opened to the forest behind the cabin. Stay low, move fast, and stick close to me, Dana instructed, drawing her weapon. We'd made it about 50 yards into the forest when I heard shouting from the direction of the cabin, followed by the unmistakable sound of gunfire. Dana quickened our pace, leading me through the trees along what appeared to be a predetermined escape route. The sound of pursuit grew closer, snapping twigs and hushed voices. Dana signaled me to stop and hide behind a large fallen tree. Moments later, a man in dark tactical gear emerged from the brush about 20 yards away, scanning the forest floor for tracks. Dana motioned for me to stay down as she carefully shifted position. The man moved closer, and I could see he was holding a gun similar to Dana's. When he was about 10 feet away, Dana made her move, launching herself at him with surprising speed. They struggled briefly before the man threw Dana off, sending her weapon skittering across the ground. As he raised his gun, I acted on instinct, using the self-defense move Thompson had taught me just hours earlier. I rushed from my hiding spot and drove my shoulder into the back of the man's knees, causing him to stumble forward. Dana recovered quickly, delivering a precise strike to his wrist that made him drop his weapon, followed by a blow to his head that rendered him unconscious. "Nice teamwork," she panted, retrieving both weapons. "Now we really need to move." We continued our escape, eventually reaching a dirt road where a different vehicle than the one we'd arrived in was hidden under a camouflage tarp. Dana quickly uncovered it, and we sped away from the safe house. "Thompson?" I asked. "He'll rendezvous with us at the secondary location if he can," Dana said grimly. "He's been in worse situations." "How did they find us?" I repeated my earlier question. Dana's expression was troubled. "I don't know." The safe house location was known to only a handful of agents. We may have a security breach within the Marshal's service itself. After several hours of driving, taking detours and switching vehicles twice more, we arrived at the secondary location, an underground facility disguised as a storage unit complex outside of Albany, New York. Thompson was already there, sporting a bandage on his arm but otherwise intact. Marcus had also made it out with most of the equipment. "Did you recover the pendant?" was Thompson's first question. I reached under my shirt and pulled out the necklace, which I'd kept on me throughout our escape. "Good," he said, visibly relieved. "They hit us harder than expected." These weren't ordinary mercenaries. They had tactical training and inside knowledge of our security systems. "I've been monitoring news reports," Marcus said, gesturing to a computer setup in the corner of the room. "Your parents are working with the FBI to find you. At least, that's the official story." On the screen, I saw Frank and Brenda Carter standing with men in suits who were identified as FBI agents. They were announcing an expanded search for me, describing me as vulnerable and possibly suffering from delusions. They're painting me as mentally unstable, I realized. So if I try to tell anyone the truth, no one will believe you, Dana finished. It's another standard tactic. Looking at the people who had raised me, standing there and deliberately vilifying me to aid criminals, I finally accepted the full reality of my situation. The depth of their betrayal was breathtaking. "I want to confront them," I said suddenly, surprising even myself with the conviction in my voice. "Face to face. I want to hear them admit what they've done." "Absolutely not," Thompson began, but Dana raised a hand. "Actually," she said thoughtfully, "that might be exactly what we need to do." "You want to use me as bait," I said flatly after Dana explained her plan. We were seated around a table in the underground facility, which I'd learned was called a black site, an undocumented location used for high-risk operations. "Not bait," Dana corrected. "The centerpiece of a carefully orchestrated sting operation." "There's a difference." "Feels like semantics from where I'm sitting." Thompson, who had initially opposed the idea, now reluctantly agreed it had merit. "The Carters believe you're frightened and confused. They'll expect you to eventually reach out to them, especially with the media campaign painting you as potentially unstable. If you contact them," Dana continued, expressing fear and a desire to come home, "they'll see it as an opportunity to complete their original plan, delivering you to the Blackwood organization. And we'll be waiting," Thompson finished. "We can finally catch them in the act and potentially identify their Blackwood contacts." The plan was risky but had clear advantages. The Carters would be arrested, eliminating the immediate threat to me. Their cooperation might lead to valuable intelligence about the Blackwood organization. And selfishly, I wanted answers that only they could provide. "We'll have agents positioned throughout the meeting location," Dana assured me. "You'll be wearing a wire, and we'll be listening to every word. At the first sign of danger, we move in." "What if they don't take the bait? What if they suspect a trap?" "They won't," Thompson said confidently. "Their arrogance is their weakness. They've been playing this role for 20 years and have come to believe they're untouchable." Over the next day, we carefully constructed my approach. I would call from a burner phone, sounding distraught and confused. I'd claimed that I'd been kidnapped by people claiming to be federal agents, but had managed to escape. I didn't know who to trust, but wanted to come home. "Your emotional distress won't be entirely an act," Dana noted gently. "Use that authenticity." When the time came to make the call, My hands trembled so badly that Thompson had to dial the number for me. The phone rang 3 times before my mother's voice answered, sounding tired and strained. "Hello, Mom?" I said, my voice breaking. The mixture of genuine emotion and performance made the word catch in my throat. "Allison," she gasped. "Oh my God, Frank. It's Allison." I heard my father's voice in the background, then the sound of an extension being picked up. "Allison, where are you? Are you okay?" His voice carried the perfect note of paternal concern. "I don't know if I'm okay," I said, letting tears flow freely now. "These people took me. They said they were federal agents, but I think they were lying. They told me terrible things about you and Dad. I managed to get away, but I'm scared. I don't know who to trust." "Oh, sweetheart," my mother said soothingly. "We know about these people. They've been harassing other families too. The FBI is involved now. Just tell us where you are, and we'll come get you." "I'm afraid to say where I am on the phone," I replied, following our script. "But I can meet you somewhere public. Tomorrow morning? That coffee shop near the library?" There was a brief pause, and I could almost see them exchanging looks, recalculating their plans. "Of course," my father said. 10 o'clock? Just you and us, no police. They've been making this whole situation more complicated. We just want to bring you home safely." "Okay," I whispered. 10 o'clock. I'll see you then." After the call ended, I collapsed into a chair, emotionally drained. "They didn't even hesitate," I said numbly. "Not even a second of genuine concern." "They've had years to perfect their performance," Thompson reminded me. "Don't underestimate how convincing they can be in person. Remember who they really are, not who you thought they were." The next morning, I was fitted with a concealed wire and given a panic button disguised as a hair clip. Agents would be positioned throughout the coffee shop and surrounding area. Dana would be seated nearby as a customer, while Thompson would monitor from a surveillance van outside. "If anything feels wrong, anything at all, use the signal and we move in," Dana instructed, adjusting my wire one final time. The coffee shop was selected for its multiple exits and clear sight lines. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordering a latte I couldn't drink and selecting a table near the back with a clear view of the entrance. At exactly 10 o'clock, Frank and Brenda Carter walked in. They spotted me immediately, and my mother's face crumpled with what appeared to be relief. She rushed over, enveloping me in a hug that felt so familiar, so safe, that for a terrifying moment, I doubted everything Dana and Thompson had told me. "We've been so worried," she murmured, stroking my hair like she had when I was a child. My father joined us, placing a protective hand on my shoulder. "Are you hurt? Did they harm you in any way?" "No," I said, my voice small. "But they told me things, terrible things." "Let's sit," my father suggested, glancing around the coffee shop with subtle scrutiny that I might not have noticed a week ago. "You can tell us everything." As we sat, I noticed my mother position herself between me and the nearest exit. My father kept one hand free, close to his jacket pocket. These were not the movements of concerned parents, but the tactical positioning of trained agents. "They said you're not my real parents," I began, watching their reactions carefully. "That my real name is Allison Reynolds, and you were assigned to protect me as part of a witness protection program." "Oh, sweetheart," my mother said, reaching for my hand with a sad smile. "This is why we've been so worried. These people have clearly manipulated you with these bizarre stories." "They showed me my birth certificate," I continued. "Photos of my biological parents. Documentation of the witness protection program. Forgeries," my father said dismissively. "These people are con artists, Allison. They've targeted other families with similar stories. The FBI is investigating them." I pulled my hand away from my mother's. "They also showed me surveillance photos of you, Dad, meeting with men connected to something called the Blackwood Organization. They had recordings of your phone calls discussing delivering a package. A flicker of something, surprise, concern, calculation, crossed my father's face before his expression settled back into parental worry. "These are serious accusations, Allison. I think you need help, professional help. We're worried about your mental state." "Are you?" I asked, my voice hardening. "Or are you worried about the microchip hidden in the pendant you gave me?" The one with evidence that could destroy the Blackwood organization. This time, neither could mask their reaction. My mother's face went completely blank, while my father's eyes darted to my neck where the pendant usually hung. "Where is it?" he asked, his voice suddenly cold and unfamiliar. "Safe," I replied. "Along with me until recently." "But I'm not safe with you anymore, am I? Was I ever?" My mother's transformation was chilling. The warm, concerned expression melted away, replaced by clinical assessment. "You've been talking to the marshals," she said flatly. It wasn't a question. "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking despite my determination to stay strong. "You raised me. How could you betray me like this?" My father leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. "You have no idea what you're involved in, Allison. The Blackwoods aren't people you can run from. They have resources, connections. The marshals can't protect you forever. And you can." I challenged. "We had a plan," he insisted. "A controlled handover. You would have been unharmed if you'd just cooperated. Now you've complicated everything by not letting you sell me to criminals." I couldn't keep the bitter incredulity from my voice. My mother glanced at her watch, then at my father. Some silent communication passed between them. "Enough talking," my father decided, standing abruptly. "You're coming with us now. We'll sort this out at home." "I'm not going anywhere with you," I said firmly. His hand clamped around my arm with bruising force. "This isn't a request, Allison." "Let go of me," I said loudly, drawing attention from nearby tables. "She's having an episode," my mother explained to the staring patrons, her concerned parent mask back in place. "Our daughter has been struggling with mental health issues." My father began pulling me toward the door, his grip painful. "Don't make a scene," he warned under his breath. "You'll only make this worse for yourself." I reached up as if to brush hair from my face and pressed the panic button in my clip. Instantly, Dana stood from her table across the room, her badge already out. "Federal agent." "Let her go." Thompson and 3 other agents burst through the door, weapons drawn. "U.S. Marshals. Hands where we can see them." My father froze, then made a desperate lunge, trying to pull me in front of him as a shield. I remembered Thompson's training and dropped my weight, twisting out of his grip. An agent tackled him to the ground while another secured my mother, who hadn't attempted to flee but stood watching the scene unfold with cold calculation. Within minutes, both were handcuffed and being led to separate vehicles outside. The coffee shop had been evacuated, and agents were securing the scene. "You okay?" Dana asked, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder. I nodded, though okay felt like a concept from another lifetime. "I want to talk to them. Separately. Before they're processed." Dana hesitated, then nodded. "We can arrange that." They set up the confrontation at a local police station where my parents had been transported. I would speak to my mother first, then my father, with agents monitoring from behind a one-way mirror. Brenda Carter sat at a metal table, her hands cuffed in front of her. She looked smaller somehow, stripped of the maternal persona she'd worn for 20 years. "Was any of it real?" I asked as I sat across from her. It was the only question that mattered to me in that moment. She studied me for a long moment before answering. "Parts of it," she admitted finally. "In the beginning, it was just an assignment. A job. But children have a way of working into your heart, even when you're trying to maintain professional distance. Yet you were willing to hand me over to people who would have killed me." "They wouldn't have killed you," she said, as if that made it better. "They just wanted the evidence. Once they had it, they would have let you go." "And you believe that?" "These people murdered witnesses and have been hunting me for 20 years, but they would have just let me walk away." She looked away. "We didn't have a choice, Allison. They found us 7 years ago. Frank had made some bad investments, we were underwater financially, and they offered a way out. Just information at first. Where you were, what you were doing. Nothing that would put you in danger. Until it did put me in danger. They found out about the pendant last year," she continued, ignoring my comment. "Apparently, your biological father had told someone about it before he disappeared into witness protection. After that, the stakes changed. It wasn't just about information anymore." "So you plan to deliver me like a package?" I said bitterly. "We tried to delay," she insisted. We kept making excuses, saying the timing wasn't right. But they became impatient. They threatened us. You have to understand, Allison. Stop calling me that, I interrupted. You've admitted I'm not Allison Carter. You've admitted this was all a lie. Her face hardened. Fine. But whatever your name is, you were my daughter for 20 years. I taught you to read, bandaged your scraped knees, helped you through your first heartbreak. That counts for something. Not enough to keep you from betraying me, I replied, standing up. There was nothing more to say to this woman who was both familiar and a complete stranger. My father, Frank, was even colder in his interrogation room. There was no pretense of affection, just calculating assessment. You should have gotten in the car with us, he said when I entered. We could have worked something out. Like you worked something out with the Blackwoods? Trading me for, what, money? Protection? Both, he admitted readily. We were good agents once, but 20 years of babysitting duty takes its toll. We deserved more than a government pension for the sacrifices we made. Sacrifices? I repeated incredulously. You were given a ready-made family and a comfortable suburban life. We were given a prison, he snapped. Every move monitored, every decision scrutinized. We couldn't even take a vacation without clearance from handlers. And for what? To protect some accountant who couldn't mind his own business and his self-righteous wife. His contempt for my biological parents was palpable, and it ignited an unexpected surge of loyalty toward people I couldn't even remember. They did the right thing, I said. Unlike you. The right thing, he scoffed. Thomas Reynolds could have taken a payout like everyone else did. Instead, he had to play hero, and we got stuck with the consequences. He leaned forward, eyes cold. They'll find you, you know. The Blackwoods. They have people everywhere, police, government, even in the marshal's service. That's how they found us at the safe house. Is that a threat? I asked, refusing to show the fear his words triggered. It's a reality check. You think this ends with us in custody? This is just the beginning. They'll never stop looking for that evidence. As I turned to leave, he called after me, "Remember who raised you, Allison. Remember who you really are." The words followed me out of the room, echoing in my mind long after I'd left the police station. Because that was the question at the heart of everything. Who was I really? 6 months later, I stood in front of a bathroom mirror in Seattle, still getting used to my reflection. The woman staring back at me had shoulder-length auburn hair instead of my natural blonde, brown contact lenses hiding my hazel eyes, and called herself Megan Brooks. My third identity. First Allison Reynolds, then Allison Carter, now Megan Brooks. Each one felt like a costume I was wearing rather than a person I was being. After the arrests of Frank and Brenda Carter, things had moved quickly. The data extracted from my pendant, accessed using my fingerprint and the passphrase, "Midnight Fireflies," which apparently referenced a memory from my early childhood, had proven even more valuable than anticipated. It contained not just financial records and conversations, but videos, photographs, and detailed accounts of criminal activities spanning decades. The Justice Department had launched multiple investigations, resulting in dozens of arrests, including high-ranking officials who had been secretly working with the Blackwood organization. But as Frank had warned, the organization's reach was extensive, and the threat to me remained significant. Hence, Megan Brooks, a completely new identity in a city I'd never visited before, with a job as a content writer for a tech company that was aware of my special circumstances, but not the details. I had a modest apartment in the Ballard neighborhood, a weekly check-in with Agent Dana Winters, who had become my handler and, increasingly, my friend, and twice-weekly sessions with Dr. Patterson, a therapist specializing in trauma and identity issues. "How are you settling in?" Dr. Patterson asked during our session that morning. "Fine," I said automatically, then caught myself. One of our agreements was that I would try to be honest rather than saying what I thought people wanted to hear. A habit developed from years of unconsciously performing the role of Allison Carter. Actually, it's still strange, I amended. I keep forgetting to respond when someone calls me Megan. I reach for my old ID when I'm asked for identification. I almost signed an email with Allison yesterday. That's normal, Dr. Patterson assured me. Identity is deeply ingrained. It takes time to adjust to such a fundamental change. But which identity am I adjusting from? I asked, voicing the question that haunted me. I lived as Allison Carter for 20 years, but that was a fabrication. Allison Reynolds existed for only 7 years, and I barely remember her. Is Megan Brooks just another role I'm playing? I think that's the central question you're here to explore, Dr. Patterson said thoughtfully. Who are you beneath the names and circumstances? What core self remains consistent regardless of what you're called or where you live? It was a question I wrestled with daily. In some ways, starting fresh in Seattle had been liberating. I no longer felt the pressure to live up to Frank and Brenda's expectations. I could define myself on my own terms. But there was also a profound loneliness in being disconnected from my past, both pasts. After my session, I met Dana at a coffee shop near my apartment, one of our regular check-in locations that we rotated for security purposes. How's the job going? She asked after we'd ordered. It's good. Challenging enough to keep me engaged, but not so demanding that I can't handle it with everything else going on. I stirred my latte absently. Any news? Dana knew what I was asking. Any news about the Carters, about the Blackwood organization, about my biological parents? Frank and Brenda both received 15-year sentences for conspiracy and other charges, she reported. They're in separate federal facilities. Neither has offered any cooperation since their initial processing. I nodded, having expected as much. And the Blackwoods? Major progress there. The evidence from your pendant led to the arrest of Gregory Blackwood's son, who had been running the organization from the shadows. We've identified most of their network, though some associates remain at large. Enough to keep me as Megan Brooks indefinitely? Dana's expression was sympathetic but firm. For the foreseeable future, yes. The threat assessment hasn't changed. I sighed, having anticipated this answer as well. And my biological parents? At this, Dana's expression softened slightly. That's actually why I wanted to meet in person today. I have confirmation that they're alive and well. They've been living under new identities in Australia for the past decade. My heart leaped. Can I contact them? Not yet, Dana said gently. Their security protocols are even more stringent than yours. But they've been informed that you're safe and that the evidence your father secured has finally been put to use. They've expressed a strong desire to reconnect when it's safe to do so. It wasn't much, but it was something, a thread connecting me to a past I couldn't remember, but that was authentically mine. In the meantime, Dana continued, sliding a newspaper across the table. You might be interested in this. It was the national section of the Washington Post. The headline read, Major Crime Syndicate Dismantled, Decades of Corruption Exposed. The article detailed how evidence from a 20-year-old case had led to the arrests of numerous officials and the freezing of billions in assets tied to illegal activities. They can't name you for security reasons, Dana explained, but that's the impact of your pendant. Your biological father's evidence finally accomplished what he intended. For the first time in months, I felt a genuine smile spread across my face. Whatever else was uncertain in my life, this was something tangible, proof that the upheaval had served a greater purpose. That evening, I joined a support group for victims of identity theft and fraud. While my situation was unique, the emotional impact of having your identity violated resonated with everyone there. We met in a community center downtown, sharing stories and coping strategies without delving into specifics that might compromise anyone's security. The hardest part, I shared during my turn to speak, is feeling like I don't have a solid foundation. Like I'm building a house on shifting sand. Heads nodded in understanding. A woman named Claire spoke up after my experience. I had to accept that identity isn't just what's on paper or what others perceive. It's what you carry inside, your values, your choices, your responses to challenges. That's what my therapist says, I acknowledged with a small smile. Smart therapist, Claire replied, returning the smile. After the meeting, I walked home through light Seattle rain, reflecting on Claire's words. What did I carry inside that remained consistent through all these changes? My apartment was small but comfortable, decorated with new items that held no memories or associations with my previous lives. The only exception was a small sketch I'd drawn of my childhood home in Connecticut. Not out of nostalgia for the Carters, but as acknowledgement that those years had shaped me, for better or worse. As I made tea, my neighbor Tyler knocked on my door. He was a graphic designer who lived across the hall, friendly but not intrusive, with a quick smile and an easy manner that put me at ease despite my general wariness of new people. "Hey," he greeted me. "A package for you was delivered to my apartment by mistake." He held out a small box. "Thanks," I said, taking it. "Do you want to come in for tea? I just made some." The invitation surprised me as much as it seemed to surprise him. Part of my security protocol was maintaining polite distance from neighbors. But something about the support group discussion had left me craving normal human connection. "Sure," Tyler said after a moment's hesitation. "I'd like that." Over tea, we talked about inconsequential things: a new restaurant in the neighborhood, an upcoming arts festival, his latest design project. It was refreshingly ordinary, with no hidden agendas or life-or-death stakes. After he left, I opened the package he'd delivered. Inside was a small potted plant with a note from Dana, something living that can put down roots anywhere. I placed the plant on my windowsill, oddly touched by the gesture. That night, I wrote in the journal Dr. Patterson had suggested I keep 6 months as Megan Brooks. Still feels strange, but maybe less so than last month. I wonder if I'll ever feel settled in any identity again, or if that's even the goal. Maybe the point isn't to find solid ground, but to learn to dance on shifting sands. Tyler from across the hall came over for tea today. First social interaction that wasn't therapy, support group, or Dana in weeks. It felt good to just be a person having tea with another person, with no mention of witness protection or trauma or new identities. Dana confirmed my biological parents are alive in Australia. Someday maybe I'll meet them. Will they recognize anything of themselves in me? Will I recognize anything of myself in them? The evidence Dad collected finally did what it was supposed to do. Whatever else happens, that matters. Claire from group said something that stuck with me. Identity isn't just external labels, but what you carry inside. What do I carry? Resilience, apparently. Adaptability. A stubborn desire for truth, even when it hurts. A capacity for starting over that I never knew I had. Maybe that's enough foundation to build on for now. The next morning, I watered my new plant and opened my curtains to let in the Pacific Northwest light. So different from Connecticut sunshine, but beautiful in its own way. My phone pinged with a news alert, another arrest connected to the Blackwood case. I thought about Frank's final warning to me: they'll never stop looking for that evidence. He had meant it as a threat, but it had become something else entirely. The evidence had found its purpose, and the organization that had haunted my family for decades was crumbling. As I prepared for work, I practiced introducing myself in the mirror. "Hi, I'm Megan Brooks." The name still felt foreign on my tongue, but perhaps less so than yesterday. Identity, I was learning, wasn't a fixed point, but a continuum. Allison Reynolds, Allison Carter, Megan Brooks. Each was a chapter in my story, not the whole book. The woman who had survived all three was still emerging, still discovering her own contours and capabilities. For now, that was enough. That, and the small plant putting down new roots on my windowsill, the morning light illuminating possibilities I couldn't yet imagine, and the knowledge that somewhere across the world, 2 people who shared my blood were hoping to one day know the woman their daughter had become. I wasn't defined by the people who had betrayed me or even by those who had protected me. I was defined by how I had faced the unimaginable and found a way forward. That was something no new name or location could take away. As I headed out into the Seattle morning, I felt something shift inside me, not a dramatic transformation, but a subtle realignment, like a compass finally finding north after spinning wildly for months. I didn't know if I would ever feel completely at home as Megan Brooks. I didn't know if I would ever meet my biological parents or if the threat from the remaining Blackwood associates would ever fully disappear. But I knew that beneath all the layers of identity and deception, I had found something authentic, a core self that could withstand whatever came next. And that, I was beginning to understand, was the most valuable identity of all. What would you do if your entire life turned out to be a fabrication? Have you ever experienced a moment where everything you thought you knew was suddenly called into question? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Remember, sometimes our greatest strengths emerge from our most challenging moments. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it inspires you to discover your own authentic self, regardless of the name you answer to. Until next time, this is Megan Brooks, or whoever I truly am, signing off.